Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, your guest co-host, Rich Just Win Baby. Today, we're going to be talking about UFC San Antonio, Marlon Chito Vera versus Cory Sandhagen. Winner's getting a title shot. And Rich, it's going live this Saturday night, live at the AT&T Center from San Antonio, Texas. I mean, you got the man in Marlon Chito Vera with the most finishes in the history of the bantamweight division, taking on the very creative Cory Sandhagen. I mean, these kind of fights are the reason that we tune into this sport, and I have a feeling it's going to be violent Saturday night.
Yeah, for sure, man. Take the betting away from it, and just as a fan, that one's a pleasure to see. Always exciting to see Cory perform, and yeah, it's been a good week of fights, man. Seeing Leon retain his belt against Usman, that was satisfying to see, and yeah, looking forward to this card, man. It's a lot better than the last one, in my opinion, in terms of bets.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the funny thing is originally they were trying to sneak in a little Holly Holm main event, which, you know, no disrespect to the former champion. She's got one of the best upsets in the history of the sport against Ronda. But funnily enough, last time they did that, they literally put Michelle Pereira versus Santiago Ponzinibbio as the co-main event ahead of Vieira and Holm. So my main event was Ponzinibbio and Pereira. I stopped watching the card right after that. I still haven't seen Holm versus Vieira. So I'm glad they learned from their mistakes, because it would have been an atrocity to have Vera versus Sandhagen before Holm and Yana Kunitskaya. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So, my man, let's get right down to business, because without further ado, in the main event, for, you know, I was going to say for the bantamweight title, but it's not for the bantamweight title. It's for a crack at the bantamweight title. We got Marlon Chito Vera. He's 22-7-1, representing Ecuador. He's the first ever Ecuadorian fighter in UFC history. Now we got Michael Morales, and I think there's one more too, but this guy's the pioneer, taking on the ultra creative Cory Sandhagen, who is 15-4. And currently, Rich, they got it. Cory Sandhagen minus 181. The comeback on Marlon Chito Vera is plus 156. So, I mean, I get the narrative here, man. I mean, basically what I've been hearing is that Cory Sandhagen is going to come out here and out-volume Marlon Chito Vera. And quite frankly, I agree with that. I think he is going to come out here and out-volume Marlon Chito Vera. I think a good majority of Marlon Chito Vera's opponents go out there and out-volume him. But the funny thing about it, man, is usually I like to bet on guys that, you know, can double up their opponents on strikes, that put up those high strike counts and have the insane volume, and guys that aren't reliant on big moments, that aren't reliant on finishes. And like, Chito Vera is the exception to the rule, my man. I mean, literally, like I already mentioned, this guy's got the most finishes in the history of the division. And it's one thing where it's like a Trevin Jones case where, you know, he's getting whooped by Valiev. Oh, and he finds a fluke shot. Maybe he does it one more time against Bautista and then never wins a fight ever again. This guy, Chito Vera, makes this work over and over and over. And at what point do you stop counting him out, Rich?
Yeah, I think you said right, man. And I guess the narrative is Cory's going to piece him up and go to the decision. But like you say, Vera is an exception to the rule, and he's dangerous, man. We've seen it in the Dominic Cruz fight. You know, he's a slow starter. He was losing, was it the fourth round that he found that head kick on Cruz? He's always live for that KO, man. So I can imagine that this plus 150 number is going to be very enticing to everybody to take Vera as the dog. And to be honest, I don't mind it myself. I haven't made a decision yet on the main event. I'm still looking into it. You know, it's a bit worrisome how Cory, once he's down, gets back up. You know, he gives his back up every single time. That's what led to the submission from Sterling. So I'm wary of that. I'm wary of his, you know, being prone to subs. And I know Vera does have low-key good jiu-jitsu. So yeah, still looking into this one, to be honest. But I think Vera as a dog is very appealing.
I mean, the thing about him is that he defies logic. I mean, you look at the numbers in the Dominic Cruz fight. He got outstruck 92-61, gave up 2 takedowns in that fight. But he's landing knockdowns in the rounds in which he's losing. So you look at the 92-61, but then you look at the knockdowns, it's 3-0 in terms of knockdowns. Same thing with the Rob Font fight. Rob, okay, if I'm here telling you and looking you in the eye with a straight face, Rich, and telling you that, hey, one guy outstruck the other guy by over 100 significant strikes and still lost the fight. That's just like what Chito brings to the table. Like when he touches guys, they react different. And I know it's hard to rely on that, but like at this point, like you see these guys' faces after they go in there with Chito Vera, and it's like they went through, a meat grinder, and it's not even, a John Fitch, hump someone, bore the crowd. Like this guy puts damage on people. And the thing I always criticized about Marlon Vera back in the day was, I always thought he was a hard kicker. I thought he had opportunistic finishing ability, but I had issues with his hands. I thought his boxing wasn't the best, right? Well, I mean, the guy got outside his comfort zone. He's been training with Jason Perillo the last few camps, a guy who's responsible for UFC champions like Michael Bisping, a guy who's responsible for UFC double champions like BJ Penn, a guy who's responsible for UFC champions like Chris Cyborg. So the fact that, he humbled himself, he dropped his ego and said, hey, this is what I need to work on specifically, I think it's been paying dividends. I mean, you look at the Cruz fight. Yeah, was the volume not up to par with Cruz? Sure, but who was landing the knockdowns? And I'm not just talking about the head kick at the end, Rich. He was dropping in with jabs too.
Yeah, very, very true. And to be fair, it is Dominic Cruz, and I don't think Dominic's really lost a step. He's still doing his thing in there. So I don't think you can hate on Vera for losing the first couple of rounds. I think he did very well. And yeah, like you say, man, massive improvements from the Vera that once was. So yeah, I think gun to my head at the minute, I'd have to say Vera, and I think he's going to get a submission, man. I'm looking at his record now. He hasn't had one for a while. He nearly got that rear naked choke on David Grant, and yeah, I just think gut feeling he's due one. And I can't ignore the get-ups from Cory, man. He exposes his back far too much. We've seen that in the Sterling fight. You look earlier on his record, and he's getting... Is it Cory? Oh, my mistake. That's his only submission loss. But yeah, that was telling enough for me from the Sterling one. I think I'm going to take the dog spot on Vera in this situation. But yeah, I think at range, Cory's obviously going to land his shots and do his thing. I think Marlon has to close the distance in this one. Maybe get some takedowns, throw them elbows and make it dirty. I think if he stays on the outside, he's in trouble with the kicks and the knees from Sandhagen, to be honest. I think Vera's too low volume.
Yeah, and let me say something interesting about Cory Sandhagen, because we know him as this creative artist, the arsenal, the strikes, the big volume, the flying knees, just you don't know what's coming at you. But one thing that he started implementing in his game since the TJ Dillashaw fight is he's actually been attempting a lot more takedowns, which is something that we didn't see in Cory Sandhagen in his earlier fights. And the point in case is this: you look at his fight with Piotr Yan, and Cory Sandhagen, he actually attempted 6 takedowns in that fight, which you wouldn't suspect unless you actually looked at the numbers or went back and watched the fight. Very next fight against Song Yadong, Cory Sandhagen goes 1 for 14 on takedowns. So yeah, 1 for 14, it's only 7%, accuracy, and that's not a good number. But the fact that the guy attempted 14 takedowns actually shows that he's trying to implement new elements to his game. And it's not more so to come out here and grind people out. I think it's more so to give them a different look, to get them thinking that, you're expecting the flying knees, you're expecting the combination strikes, and then this guy's out here shooting. You're like, shit, I didn't train for that. So I know for a fact Chito Vera puts in the work, and he's, he does his homework, and I know he's going to be expecting it. But for those that, haven't really been paying attention, like we have you noticed Cory Sandhagen's been attempting a lot more takedowns his last few fights?
To be honest, I didn't watch the Peter Yan fight back when I was doing tape. I was really more on the Marlon side, so I've been watching his back. But yeah, I can see his game improving, Cory. When he first came into the UFC, I thought this guy's unbeatable. I remember his fight against, I think it was Mario Batista, when he was first coming in. And he looked phenomenal, man, doing his thing on the feet. But it was his submission game that I was impressed with. But then when I watched him against Sterling, that was just eye-opening for me. I was like, oh, okay, so this guy does have an Achilles heel. So that's what interests me in this fight, is how the grappling exchanges are going to go. Obviously, it's 5 rounds. We're likely to see that here. So yeah, that's what I'm really interested in seeing in this fight, is the grappling exchanges. And it would be really interesting to me if I seen Sandhagen forcing that issue with the takedowns, because obviously he'd be better off keeping this on the feet, in my opinion.
I agree, you know, to try to get off on the volume, because he will be outlanding Vera in terms of the numbers. And I'm glad you brought up how you know, expect the grappling to go, because not only has Cory Sandhagen, you know, been attempting more takedowns just to kind of confuse his opponents, just to get you something extra to think about, but even in the TJ Dillashaw fight, he was attacking for an inverse triangle. But on the other side of things, with Marlon Chito Vera, I mean, I know you've noticed that disgusting outside trip that he's been hitting on a lot of these guys. And that's one thing that, you know, we always used to criticize his wrestling. He's been successfully wrestling in some of these fights too. That third round against Song Yadong, when he took him down, I mean, you saw basically all the heart go out the window from Song Yadong at that point. That was a 3-round fight. My suspicion is, had that been a 5-round fight, Chito would have got the finish. And that leads me to my next point, that I used to say, I cannot wait for Marlon Chito Vera to finally compete in 5-round fights, because for whatever reason, he's the kind of guy, you know, people like to make the joke about Piotr Yan. He likes to make reads, right? And, you know, like a couple days later after the Marab fight, a meme came out, Piotr Yan is still making reads, right? But the thing is with Chito Vera, you know, he will drop a round or two early, and in 3-round fights, that's where he kind of has to rush to get that 3rd-round finish. But now he's got, you know, a couple more extra rounds to work with, and it doesn't take much for him to turn the tide of a fight. He might be getting outstruck by over 100 strikes, like in the Font fight, by 30 strikes in the Cruz fight. But when he lands on you, he makes stuff count. And not that Cory Sandhagen has some kind of durability concern. I don't think he does. But what we have seen is we've seen people land hard on him, whether it was early in his UFC career against Yuri Alcantara. The thing is, Chito Vera's heart is, you know, levels above that version of Yuri at the time. Not only the Yuri fight, but the Piotr Yan fight. We saw Piotr Yan actually successfully knock down Cory Sandhagen and change the course of the fight from there on out. So, like, again, I know it's not my style to be relying on big moments or comebacks or this or that, but I truly think Chito Vera is the exception to the rule. And more importantly than any of that, it's about the number for me, Rich, and I'd be willing to lay plus 155 odds on Marlon Vera against anyone in the bantamweight division in a 5-round fight, period.
Yeah, you're definitely right. 5-round Vera is totally different. And I'd find it hard to bet against him in that position. And then on top of that, you get dog odds. You know, kind of forces your hand a little bit here.
So kind of how I see it going, I see him getting outstruck, you know, not 93-44, but the times that Chito does land, whether it's knockdowns, whether it's, you know, facial damage kind of in that 3rd round, like Fiziev versus Gaethje, it's just going to be so apparent who's, you know, more significant with their shots, who's more impactful, that I think even if it does go to decision, you know, I'm not saying it with 100% certainty that Chito's going to win. I'm just saying that you can't discount that possibility of him winning a decision too. Although as a Chito Vera better, I would of course prefer a finish.
Yeah, it's kind of like Leon last week. I bet many people got burnt by taking the ITD because they thought, well, Leon ain't going to win a decision because, you know, Usman's going to land takedowns. So anyone who's going to win the decision, it's likely going to be Usman because he's, you know, adding the takedowns. And it's the same with Vera. You know, yeah, he's low volume and Cory's probably more likely to win the decision on volume, but you can't, you know, you don't want to get burnt like that, especially when the odds are so good on the money line. Like plus 150 is pretty crazy, man.
Exactly. And that's my point too, you know, as someone who bet Leon, and shout out to the person that actually gave me some nice insider info right before the fight that Usman was dealing with that injury. And dude, that fight was a game of inches, literally. And I feel like that injury made all the difference in the world. So I don't need to fuck around with round 2, round 3 when the guy's already plus 215 money line. And I feel the same way here. He's already plus 155. I don't need to get cute. Let me just take him straight. And again, I don't have a single bad thing to say about Cory Sandhagen, and I'm very well aware that he's got a path to victory here. Outland this guy. I mean, you're going to outland this guy, win, lose, or draw, but outland him and prevent him from having those big moments. That's really what it comes down to in my eyes. But I'm not betting against Chito right now. I think it's his time. I think he's ready for his title shot. So I got to go with him, and I love the number.
Yeah, I'm with you. Same, man. And yeah, same with Cory. Like, I hate to see him lose. It's kind of like Andrea Lee later on in the card. I hate to see her lose, but you can't bet with your, you got to bet with your head, man.
Well, why would you hate to see Andrea Lee lose?
Oh, I've just got a bit of a simp thing for some Andrea Lee, so it's nice to see her win, stay in the UFC. But yeah, it looks like her career's coming to an end.
Yeah, but she was married to a fucking Nazi, and now she's married to Tony Kelly.
Oh, I know all that. Yeah, she chooses some real dickheads to go out with, but she's easy on the eye. But personality-wise, she's got some work to do.
Yeah, I'll tell you that much.
To say the least.
So, co-main event of the evening. I mean, look, between you and me, why don't we talk about the real co-main event of the evening, which is Manel Kape, who's 18-6, taking on Alex Perez, who's 24-7. And currently, they got it Manel Kape -170. The comeback on Alex Perez is +145. And I'm taking a stance here, man. I think that Manel Kape is one of these guys that came into the UFC as a champion, and they treated him accordingly. Think about this, Rich. Conor McGregor's debut opponent was Marcus Brimage. Manel Kape's debut opponent was Alexandre Pantoja. Like that's what I'm saying here. Like, they're already treating this guy like a champion, and when you fight Pantoja on your first fight, and prior to that you're fighting in Japan with shoes on, the ref's got an earpiece. I mean, like, it's just, you got to get used to what it's like inside the UFC's octagon. And even though that fight didn't go his way, it can be frustrating that his output can be on the lower side. You still saw some glimpses. I saw much more improved grappling than I saw back in his days in Japan. I mean, the guy's actually earned his black belt since then, and I really felt like once he starts to feel like the octagon is his home, this guy's a problem. I mean, his hand speed has to be right up there. He's got that one hitter quitter, which you don't often see in the flyweight division. He's got insane confidence. His ground game has leveled up tremendously. I think he's the guy. And the thing with Alex Perez, like, yeah, does he have skills? Yeah, the guy's got heavy hands. He's got the wrestling background. I've always, had a soft spot for guys that, have good Darce chokes and anaconda chokes as a jiu-jitsu guy myself. So I respect it. But my issue with Alex Perez is he can give it, but I'm not convinced he can take it. And people can talk about these last two submission losses all they want. I don't need to talk about that. Why don't we talk about the Joseph Benavidez fight? Why do people just brush that under the rug? Why do they act like that never happened? How he got knocked out 3 times in that fight. I really think that he comes after Manel Kape trying to get into a slugging exchange, man. He's going to hit the deck, and I don't think the wrestling is going to be as successful as some people foresee it being. Maybe a takedown, but I see Manel getting back up to his feet. I think the submission is live too, as crazy as that sounds, but more often than not, I think Manel is going to land the more damaging blows, and whether it's a knockout or decision, I like this -170 on Manel Kape. I was lining him more -200, -230. So -170, I'm good. And I know that there's some respected sharp action on Alex Perez, but that doesn't intimidate me at all. I'm not on board with this form of Alex Perez. And I think you have to be a certain level to beat Manel Kape. I don't think Alex is on that level. I see Manel fighting the winner of Pantoja versus Moreno for the title. So for that reason, I have to not only pick Manel Kape, but I have to bet him too.
Yeah, I like it, man. Yeah, I'm surprised by that number 2. I'd expect -200, -250 range here for Kape. I don't like Perez. I used to back in the day. I thought this guy had it all. Submissions, the wrestling, the hands. But look at his record, man. Just taking a look now, he's backed out of his last 8 fights. They've been cancelled, or someone's withdrew, or he's missed weight. Lost his last 2 fights, yes, against good competition, but nevertheless, he's taking losses, and they're all in the first round as well. He's getting subbed, which goes to your point. He can't really take it when it's coming back from the other side. I remember cashing Figueiredo in that fight. The submission, it was something stupid like +400, I remember. So that was satisfying. But yeah, I see this situation as, we've seen it many times before. Not too long ago with Benito Lopez. He's a real estate agent coming in to make a quick 50K. And I think that's the same here with Perez. I don't know what numbers he's on, but I imagine 80K, something like that. I've seen on Instagram, he's got outside ventures. He's got some business going, some Aki thing, Akai, whatever that is. So yeah, I think Kape's the side. I think he's going to get him out of there in round 1. I wouldn't be too cute and try and bet the KO because, like you just said, I think the sub is live. So yeah, Kape's the side, man, and I think it's a great number, under plus 200. What more can you ask for?
And stylistically speaking, I know Alex Perez, besides the wrestling and the heavy hands, he's known for those calf kicks, which he got on Formiga and Formiga's, UFC retirement fight, which credit to him. He fucked the dude up. You got to give him credit. But the reason why I don't think that weapon is going to be as readily available here is that Manel Kape switches stances expertly. And I have a feeling he's going to come out here southpaw just to let Alex know, like, hey, buddy, like, I've studied your tape. These calf kicks aren't going to be as readily available as you think they are. And it's a lot harder to get off on kicks against the southpaw when you're orthodox. I mean, I can give you many examples of that. I mean, y'all remember when Jose Aldo used to be known for having the most insane leg kicks in the history of the sport. Korean Zombie threw an audible and there went southpaw, checked the kick, broke Jose Aldo's foot, and you never saw Jose Aldo get back to his kicking game like it once was. I mean, you saw him throw a kick here and there, but it was never like it used to be. And I think here, Manel Kape, he's a smart guy. If you hear him talk, like, I know he fucks around and he's a showboater and stuff like that, but I think he's getting better about it. Because, like, it's like one thing when you're out here getting dropped by jabs, like how are you gonna like fix that in the gym? But that's not the case with him. With Manel, it was just about a little bit more activity. Like, he's coming into these fights feeling like he already won. The guy acts like a champion. And I think when you give him 5-round fights, it's going to be a serious fucking problem. But I think now, he's already had 5 UFC fights under his belt. I think he's going to be ready to go. And also in that Dvorak fight, I saw a lot of things I like. Firstly, shout out to Dvorak. That dude is tougher than a $2 steak. The fact that fight went the distance is insane. The guy survived a ridiculous Kimura attempt. I mean, Manel Kape, credit to his ground game improving and him being a black belt now. We're getting Kimura sweeps now. And, I mean, against anybody else, that's a finish right there. Second round, I mean, the ref could have came in and stopped it on a knockout. And then third round, we're clearly up to, let's coast the last round. And he clearly won that too. So, yeah, there will be issues with coasting here, but I'm not convinced that Alex Perez has the goods to take what Manel Kape's going to be throwing at him. So, for that reason, I'm taking this money line sooner than later.
Yeah, he's frustrated me at times when he's in there, like you said, coasting, showboating a little bit. And, you're just screaming at the TV like, dude, you're not even up as much as you think you are. You need to chill out. There's 2 more rounds left. But yeah, I think he's the side here for sure against Perez. And I don't even think Perez is going to come in with a game plan. I literally think this is just showing up for a check. I expect him within like 30 seconds to shoot for a sloppy takedown and get counted, or maybe Kape, wraps something up and gets his submission. But yeah, I think a round 1 finish is likely here.
I'll take it, man. I will take it for sure. So, featured bout in the featherweight division, we got Nate the Train Landwehr. He's 60-4, taking on Austin Lingo, who is 9-1. And currently they got it Nate Landwehr minus 220. The comeback on Austin Lingo was plus 185. So, Rich, originally it was like minus 300, and there was kind of like a universal take that, listen, Landwehr is a guy we like to back at dog money. Whether I cashed plus 270 on him against Onama, cashed like plus 100, plus 105 against Elkins, but minus 300. For a guy that gets dropped in a lot of fights, we love him as a fan. I mean, how can you not? Nate Landwehr for president, right? But betting minus 300 on him, is kind of a tough ordeal, especially with this kid Lingo, who, he might be on the greener side, but he has been paying his dues. And if you watch his regional fights, man, he was out here sleeping guys, 1 punch, 1 hitter quitter. So he is live for the knockout. He does train at Fortis MMA, but a lot of action has come in on him. And now we're seeing Landwehr, he dropped 80 cents to minus 220. So how do you kind of see this one? And what do you think about the big line move?
Like you said earlier, I think on the first fight, the line movement doesn't concern me, to be honest. I've seen this situation before. I remember Tybura not too long ago against Bagoy. He opened something like -180 and closed -130. Tybura was the side for me. The line moved. Tybura was still the line side for me. So yeah, the line movement doesn't concern me at all. I think you've got to be crazy to be betting Nate. Like you said, he's a fan favorite. That's for sure. But laying -300 on him, laying -200 here in this situation is just pretty dumb. A gust of wind and he's like falling over. So I bet Ramos submission.
Lingo submission, you mean?
No, sorry. When Lingo got announced with Ramos, obviously that got cancelled. I had Ramos to sub him.
Gotcha.
But completely different matchup here, obviously. So yeah, I'm taking Lingo. Like, how can you not? As the underdog, I think he's got power in his hands. We've seen that on the regional scene. Not so much since he's come into the UFC. That was my reason for betting Ramos over him by submission. Not being able to finish the likes of Kilburn or Saldana, who literally had his hands on his knees at the start of round 3 in their fight, was a bit concerning. But here against Nate, it's just that chin, man. It's one of the worst I've seen, to be honest. And I'm surprised Onama didn't put him out. I backed him in the Onama fight, Nate, because like you said, he was underdog. And even in the 3rd round, I was like, Nate, what the fuck are you doing? Chill. Like, if you die here, I'm going to be pissed, man. You've got this fight. But yeah, I'm fading Nate in this one, unfortunately. It just is what it is, man. Lingo's got power. It's going to start on the feet. Nate stands for too long. He's going to give me every opportunity to cash that bet, man.
Yeah, I mean, listen, pure pick. I'm going to go with Nate. I think he's slightly ahead, more experience, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, pure pick don't mean shit. It's all about the number. And when you get a number like that, I mean, you have to roll a dice. So I'm personally going to stay away, but I feel where you're coming from. This is the definition of a dog or pass situation. And I always talk about these guys with 10 pro fights or less are going to be making these big leaps. And it's been a while since we've seen Lingo. So I'm curious to see what he's been cooking up in the gym, surrounded by the right people. I mean, I swear by Coach Saif Sayoud. Even though some of his guys haven't been winning lately, and we're going to talk about Ocho Peterson. Listen, you can't fight for them, but like, okay, you give me Coach Saif, with like a walking punching bag who's slow as fuck, like Ocho Peterson. That's one thing, but you give me Coach Saif, behind the control for some of these athletic specimens he has in his gym, and he can really work magic. So I'm curious to see, what they have for Nate Landwehr here, so I think it should be a great fight, and good luck on your bet, my man.
Yep.
So now, unfortunately, we have to talk about what they're calling the co-main event between Holly Holm, who's 14-6, taking on Yana Kunitskaya Santos, who's 14-6. Currently, they got it. Holly Holm -250. The comeback on Yana's +200. I mean, did I talk about the Pereira and Santiago fight while we were on air, or did I talk to you about that off air? Like, did I don't remember, but what
it's off air. Yeah.
It was off air. So off air, I was telling you, bro, how so last time Holly Holm main evented versus Ketlin Vieira, and it was like one of the worst fights we've ever seen. But the co-main event was Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Michelle Pereira. And I literally treated that episode of Half the Battle as if Ponzinibbio versus Pereira was the main event, because between you and me, Rich, it was the main event. And I didn't even watch Holm versus Vieira. And what everyone told me was exactly what I thought. 5 rounds of boring cage pushing. These people thought Holm won. These people thought Vieira won. Everyone's going to try to take a big side, try to, be the golden knight and the white knight for, to me, I don't give a shit about this fight, and that's no disrespect. Holly Holm had one of the greatest upsets in the history of the sport against Ronda. You know how long ago that was, my man? That shit was in November 2015, bro. It's 2023. Like, how many exciting moments has she given us since then? Maybe a couple, maybe the Betch knockout, maybe that clinic against Irene, but besides that, I'm not, champing at the bit to watch a Holly Holm fight. And Yana Kunitskaya has been extremely disappointing. I had somewhat high hopes when she won that Invicta belt and got that armbar over Tanya, but they overturned it because of the ref for some reason. I don't know. It was a legit armbar as far as I was concerned. And it seems to me like, Yana's kind of physical, but Yana is one of those, back to the Alex Perez talk. When things are going her way, You know, she can look good, but when they're not, she will check out quickly. And she just had a baby. So even though Holly's not at her best point, even though this number sucks, even though she's 41, I'm still going to go with Holly via annoying, boring split decision. This is the fight to go warm up the pizza, to pick up the chicken wings, to let your dog out, to apologize to your girlfriend for watching this fight instead of spending time with her. But yeah, Holm via decision is my pick.
Yeah, I didn't do much tape on this fight.
How dare you?
I'm not interested in betting it. I'd say Holly 8 points stays on the outside. This is the post-pregnancy fade. I didn't like Yana Santos now. I didn't like her to begin with, you know, earlier in her career. Still don't like her. And I'm definitely not betting her after coming back after having a baby. So, yeah, Holly by decision, 8 points.
Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Andrea KGB Lee. She's 13-6, taking on Maycee Barber, who is 11-2. Currently, they got it. Maycee Barber minus 260. The comeback on Andrea Lee is plus 220. You know, man, when the line was a little nicer, maybe under minus 200, I'd consider Maycee to, you know, I know Maycee, technically speaking, is not up there with Andrea, but I just think physically speaking, she's superior. And even like back in a fight, which I was in attendance for between Andrea Lee and Montana De La Rosa, like watching that fight, man, I mean, the takedowns she gives up so easily. And now I kind of feel like even in that Vivi Araujo fight where she did good early, the fight, you know, mentally she wasn't quite there like she once was. And then, you know, you factor the outside the cage stuff, which doesn't come into my analysis, that I personally don't like her, you know, marrying a Nazi. And then you break up with the Nazi who's got the swastika tattoo, and let's rebound with Tony Kelly. You know what I'm saying? So I just don't fuck with her. But what I will say is this is in Texas. They see a cute girl with a cowboy hat on, and this fight is close. You know who's getting that split decision, Rich.
Yeah. I've always had a thing for Andrea Lee, but like you say, she's not the best judge of character. Stylistically, I think this is Barber's fight all day. I think she's too strong. You know, she's the younger fighter. She's making improvements. She's only 24. I think her takedown defense is only going to get better being team alpha male. I don't know whether she's there full time, but she's certainly training there now and again from her Instagram. I think Barber's too strong, man. I think you know, she's got the punches that could like change the course of the fight. Whereas Andrea Lee, you know, she's doing her boxing thing on the feet. She's throwing her 1-2s. But I just think, you know, Barber's got the more devastating punches, man. And I think she's even live for a stoppage here. I think we've seen the Vivian Araujo fight last time out for Andrea Lee. You know, she was getting tagged in that fight, man. Obviously, Vivian's got power, you know, speed on the feet. But so is Barber. I see this is very much like that fight. Barber to negate the clinches, to negate the takedown attempts from Andrea Lee, which will come when she starts getting lit up. And I think Barber's live for a finish, man. I like her here.
I mean, listen, man, maybe third time's the charm for Andrea Lee. After she's done with Tony Kelly, you can be the man to fix her. You know what I'm saying, man? But listen, as far as in the clinch, like one thing I really like about Maycee Barber, okay, at distance, maybe the striking looks a little ugly, this and that, but in the clinch, she gets violent, man. I mean, she throws some heat for the standards of that weight class. And like you said, she's only 24 years old. So you are going to be seeing those big leaps. And ever since the fluke injury against Roxanne, I've liked what I've seen from her, you know, since then. You know, she lost that fight to the champ Alexa, but she even won a round against Alexa. She was competitive with Alexa. The Maverick fight, you know, I bet on Maverick there, and everyone says it's this big robbery. It was a close-ass fight, and I shouldn't have been laying chalk on a close-ass fight. And also on that night, I also lost. I hear people talking about how, Chito Vera only beats old guys. Well, I bet on Cory Sandhagen against an old guy named TJ Dillashaw, who was coming off an EPO suspension, who tore his ACL mid-fight, and he lost that fight. So I'm just saying, man. But yeah, back to this. I think Maycee Barber, as long as she doesn't try to have a distance kickboxing match, she should be able to rough her up, bully her a little bit, out physical her, and come out here and either get a late stoppage or get a decision win. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I think the UFC are back on Barber now. You know, she had that first L against Roxanne, you know, with the injury. I think she beat Grasso, to be honest, in that fight. I think she should have got the nod for the decision.
You thought Maycee did?
Yeah. And I think she's just on the up now. You know, they're putting her back on the pay-per-view event for her last fight. They're giving her a half-decent name here on the main card. I think the UFC is high on Barber, and I think she's going to be in a title contention again soon, man.
I can see it. So kicking off the main card, we got a matchup between Chidi and Njokuani. He's 22-8, taking down Albert Duraev, who is 15-4. So we got Nigeria versus Russia. You already know that's going to be exciting. And currently they got it Chidi -148 and Albert Duraev is +128. So a lot of actions come in on the Russian. I do have an opinion on how they match up, not necessarily a strong conviction on a pick, but I want to hear you first. What are you thinking?
Well, obviously the narrative is going to be that Chidi lights him up on the feet, avoid the takedowns, and, you know, do what Buckley did and get your KO. But I think the Russian's going to take him down in the first round and do his thing, man. I think he's going to maul him and likely get his submission end of round 1, maybe beginning of round 2. I don't think Chidi's got what it takes, you know, to do the Buckley blueprint, so to say. So, yeah, I'm on Duraev here. I think I'll probably just take the prop by submission rather than the money line, because I think if he doesn't get it early, you know, he is live to get KO'd.
Yeah, no, I feel you, and I thought it was a dogger pass situation as well. Here's the thing about Duraev. Like, word on the street is that in the gym, this guy is one of the best guys. This guy's a killer. This guy's giving Sean Strickland, Chris Curtis, all those guys, even Ankalaev, all those guys, like, insane work in the gym. It's just sometimes he doesn't quite put it together under the lights. Now that could change, you know. Maybe he's been seeing a mental coach. I don't fucking know what the deal is. He's Russian. He's too prideful to see a mental coach. But what I'm trying to say is maybe he could put it together under the lights, because the skills are there. The skills are there for Duraev. I mean, like, the Kopylov win has aged really well. And it's funny because I thought Kopylov was just this low volume, you know, fake Russian. And you saw what he just did to Puna. I was like, God damn. So that's a win that's going to age well. And the thing about Chidi is I thought he turned a corner, because I know, you know, a hardcore fan like yourself remembers the Bellator days when Koreshkov easily just took this guy down. It used to be you take down Chidi one time, he's not getting back up. But he has leveled up a little bit. You know, he is a black belt in jiu-jitsu now, but certain things will always remain the same. On the feet, you know, he's super long. He's got nasty feints. His kicking game's on point. It's just we've always kind of wanted to see a little bit more from Chidi. Like, even when I max bet Chidi against Melvin Gillard, and if you go look at that fucking the stare down and the weigh-ins, you see the size difference. It's like 6'4" versus 5'8". Like, I'm thinking like, oh, the first knee we land, we're gonna kill this guy. It ends up being a 30-25, which is, I mean, I'm not complaining about a 30-25, but still, it's like you still want a little bit more from Chidi. And I thought that he got past that when he got to the UFC. That RoboCop fight, he kind of resorted back to his old ways, and I was kind of a bummer to see. But Duraev absolutely has a path, like you were mentioning. Get him down, don't let him back up. It's hard to break his will a little bit. It's just that on the feet, you know, Duraev's been knocked out in all of his losses. He is a little bit on the chinnier side, and I don't want to question his toughness, because, like I said, what I hear from the gym is he's like the best guy just under the lights. I don't know if it's a mental thing or what it is. So dogger pass situation, and I agree with you. I won't be on Chidi, but pure pick, I'll pick Chidi. But pure pick doesn't mean shit. You're the one with money on the line, so I hope you go out there and cash this one.
Yeah, his wins haven't really aged well either, Chidi. You know, Barriou, Dusko, you know, Dusko isn't looking too good now. I thought he even looked flat in that fight. You know, we had last weekend, Dusko. I know it was a freak injury, but just, you know, at stare downs, you know, just before the fight when they were being introduced, he just looked a bit flat, man, like a bit uninterested. So, yeah, I just don't think his wins have aged very well. I think we see the same old Chidi in there. I think he breaks late round 1. You know, he is a black belt, but I don't know where he's getting that from, because he's been subbed multiple times. And I think when he's the nail, he's not so good. When he's the hammer, like in the Dana White Contender Series fight against Souza, you know, he looks like a world beater. But when he's on bottom himself, not so much.
So before we talk about this next matchup between Pineda and Lutz, everybody do me a huge favor, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. Also give my buddy Rich a follow on Twitter at JustWinBaby. So next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Daniel the Pit Pineda. He's 27-14, taking on Tucker Lutz, who is 12-2. Currently, they got it. Tucker Lutz minus 300, the comeback on Daniel Pineda's plus 245. I mean, a couple years ago, even now, this line's kind of a joke. It's just that Pineda, like, you know how we used to make jokes about pre-USADA, post-USADA, and like show before and after pictures. Like, remember that kid Eric Silva when he first came into the UFC, smashing everyone, and then they implemented the drug testing, and the guy just looked completely different. So the thing with Pineda is he was fighting in PFL, man. Like, well, firstly, he's had an original UFC stint back in the day. Like, the guy is just such a fucking seasoned vet. He's been around the game a long time, but. So Pineda makes it to the pinnacle of PFL. You know, he beat that undefeated Russian. He beat Jeremy Kennedy, beat them both in the first round, and he actually tests positive in PFL. And let me tell you this, Rich, like for you to test positive in PFL, like that means that like you're not just on Flintstone vitamins, like you're literally harvesting the garden of life fruits and vegetables, man. Like you're burning a hole in the ground when you piss, because like the inner joke like between a lot of people in the community is that PFL stands for PED Fight League. So for this guy to, you know, get his wins overturned there, and then comes into the UFC, gets a great upset win over Burns, but progressively you start to see, you know, he's a little bit more soft around the midsection, fight by fight. He's gassing out, and he's always been kind of a early finisher bust guy, but he's gassing worse than he ever has. Now he's getting up there in age at 37, 38. But the only thing is, we're here in Texas. He's from Texas. And this guy, Tucker Lutz, I think also from Texas. Lutz, I've never really been that impressed with. He's kind of like this unathletic guy that like maybe he's an overachiever. Maybe you kind of gas out against him. He can take over and beat you on points. But for minus 300, I want a destruction. Am I guaranteed a destruction here, Rich?
I don't think you are, man. And I don't think you should be betting on Lutz in this situation. I think, again, it's another dog or pass situation, man. I think Pineda is definitely the most dangerous out of the two. But saying that, you know, you got a 37-year-old, like you said, used to be on the PEDs, probably is no longer. And, you know, Lutz could win this by TKO just purely from Pineda gassing. You know, he throws everything into every shot. He comes out hot in the first round. And yeah, his recent record isn't that great, man. Like, he was definitely on his way to losing that fight against Feely before the eye poke. I'm not saying he was looking for a way out, but, you know, another minute of that fight and he would have got stopped. You know, got stopped by Cub Swanson. But yeah, in this situation, I'm taking Pineda. I like the odds. I think he's the more dangerous of the two. I think if he can get a takedown and get on top, he could definitely get a submission. But if not, I guess Lutz by decision, just by making it boring. But I really hate this guy, Lutz. I don't like him at all. I think he's boring. I think he just wants to look for his takedowns. His strength of competition isn't that great. 2 Dana White Contender Series fights against Gibson and Blackledge, which were decisions. And then he beats Kevin Aguilar by decision and loses to Sabatini. And now he gets Daniel Pineda. So, yeah, I'm taking the dog opportunity. I will be betting in the distance because I don't think Pineda can get a decision. I know it's in Texas, but he gasses that bad, man. I think it's like do or die for him. So, yeah, I'm going to roll the dice on him one last time. But I think if he loses here, it might even be retirement time, man.
I mean, the thing you got to understand about Pineda is he's had, what, like 40 to 50 fights, and he's never won a decision. Not one. So
yeah.
18 wins by submission, 9 by knockout, and that's not including the 2 that got overturned in PFL. So it's more than that. So, I mean, it's close to 30 finishes on the resume for Pineda. So what's one more? Let's see if he can do it. Now, next up, also in the featherweight division, we got a match between Steven Ocho Peterson, 19-10, taking on Lucas Alexander, who's 7-3. Currently, they got it. Steven Peterson, just depends where you look. minus 145. The comeback on Lucas Alexander is anywhere from plus 125 to plus 140, just depending where you look. And listen, man, I sat down and I watched Lucas Alexander's entire career start to finish. And I mean, some of those early fights were ugly as fuck. Like towards the end, started getting a little bit better, but I still came out thinking like, man, I cannot wait to fade this guy. He is way too green for the UFC. He's not ready yet. I mean, what he does do well is he's athletic. He's got big kicks. But that's about kind of like the extent of it, some decent knees and, you know, just a little dynamic, quote unquote, dynamic striking. Trains with good people though. Trains under Julian Williams, you know, spars with Mike Davis, Phil Rowe, Rodolfo Vieira, Jacare. So he's surrounded by the right people. It's just, you know, I'm not quite sure he's ready to be here now. And in all three of his losses, they have been submission losses, but to take it a step further, they've been quick tap. All three of them quick tap submission losses. And you can give him a pass for, you know, taking that last fight with Brito on short notice. And, oh, that's why, you know, it was so easy. But like, dude, I've seen guys, look at my buddy Jared that took a fight on 2 days notice. Yeah. Did Jared look like shit after round one? Yes. But Jared still survived every single bad spot against Carlson, who hasn't, you know, won a decision since like 2017. Carlson's out here finishing all his guys. So it just kind of showed like, I'm not sure if Lucas is exactly the toughest guy, but here's the thing. I was thinking, oh, I can't wait to fade this guy. But then I go watch Ocho Peterson, and the guy is exactly what I said throughout his entire career. He's a slow, durable, walking punching bag. He's a tough punching bag. He's an experienced punching bag, but he's a punching bag, no less. So win, lose, or draw, like Lucas Alexander is going to land on Steven Peterson no matter what. Like that's just established. He is going to get off on kicks, whatever the case may be. It's just what happens down the stretch. Are we getting to a point where the pressure of Peterson eventually gets to Lucas and maybe Lucas takes a bad shot, gets caught with a guillotine? Is it going to be a close decision where after round one, Lucas gasses and Steven lands the better shots? Or is Steven just going to get touched up for 2 of the 3 rounds because he is a fucking punching bag? Like, and also with a kid like Lucas, who's only had 10 fights, you know, he has been getting progressively better. It's just, is he at this level yet?
Bro, I think this guy, Alexander, absolutely sucks. I don't understand why he's in the UFC at all. You know, he come off that Anthony. I think it's because he took the late notice fight against Brito, if I'm not wrong. That's how he got in. Because before that, he was fighting on that Anthony Pettis show, winning to Jacob Kilbourne. It was an injury to Kilbourne, so it wasn't through anything that Alexander did. But yeah, he's a bum, bro. Like, you know, come up in the Florida scene, island fights. Like you said, he's got submission losses. I watched the tape. They were quick taps. He does lack a ground game. And this is, I can't believe Peterson's minus 150. I think he should be minus 300 here. If he loses this fight, you know, he should be cut, Peterson. This is a layup for him. Obviously, he should wrestle. That's the path of least resistance, which means he probably won't. He'll probably stand, like he said, and be a punch bag. But yeah, he's only been KO'd once in his career, Peterson. So I think he's pretty safe here. He should grind on Alexander, and he should get a finish, man. If he ain't finishing him in the first 2 rounds, like I said, he needs to be cut because this is a clear layup. I don't think this Alexander guy is any better than me or you, man. We go watch his tape. The guy's, he's absolutely a can. You know, beating guys who are 3-1, 0-0, 2-1. He doesn't belong here, man. It's Peterson's to lose, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, when I watched the tape, I was like, oh, I can't wait to fade him. It's just, then it came time to watch Steven, and man, so slow. But at least like he's in there with real guys. And even though it looks ugly as fuck, he's getting tagged every fight. His face is always a mess. He's still fighting kind of competitive with real guys. You know, won a round against Bruce Leroy. Some people thought he arguably won that fight. You know, he's had some good moments along the way. Even the Julian Erosa fight. But back to the Julian Erosa fight. Like, yes, it was a fantastic fight, but like how hurt he had Julian. Like, I need to see a guy put him out of there when you have someone hurt to that extent. But this kid Lucas is nowhere near as experienced as a Julian Erosa. So yeah, I mean the pick is Steven. It's just it's tough for me to bet on a walking punching bag.
Bro,
So
this would be make or break. If he can't get Alexander out of there, it'd be on the fade list forever. I'll never bet on Peterson again. Like you said, he should have had a roaster out of there. Should have had Hooper out of there if he had gone in with the right game plan. He did go in with the right game plan against Hooper, but at times, you know, he was just doing stupid things, but doesn't he always in every fight? But yeah, he should get it done here.
And speaking of doing stupid things in fights, next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Trevin Giles. He's 15-4, taking on Preston Parsons, who is 10-3. Currently, they got it. Preston Parsons. Well, it just depends where you look. In some books, it's Giles minus 115 and Parsons minus 105. And in other books, it's that exact line just flipped. So basically, a pick 'em fight. Some places a slight lean on Parsons, some places a slight lean on Giles. Giles, the more experienced guy. What kind of upside do you have Preston Parsons? Do you think Preston Parsons has here, whether it's with his pace or his wrestling?
Yeah, I think it's probably lined correctly. And I think obviously his grappling, Parsons, that's what's going to be the difference here. That's what he's going to try and implement. Sorry, I'm just looking at Giles' record, man. I see he's back down at welterweight for this one.
Yep.
Which is good. I don't like him at middleweight, Giles. I think he can get the W here. I don't like some things I'm seeing from Parsons. You know, a lot of round one finishes. I see him gas out in the fight against Evans when he was coming up a weight. I know he dominated that fight as he should have, Parsons, but, you know, he couldn't get the finish there against Evan Elder, who was coming up to welterweight. And then I don't like to see a guy with a lot of round one finishes on his record, man. I like to see someone who's gone the distance and faced a bit of adversity. So I don't like that from Parsons. And I just think Giles has got the he's got the jiu-jitsu, well, enough jiu-jitsu in him, you know, to be defensively sound and maybe even find his own submission later on when Parsons starts to fade, which I think he definitely will after round two. So yeah, I'm liking the Trevin Giles side here, man. I think it's good for him being back down at welterweight. And yeah, this is a Parsons fade, man. I think he's a jiu-jitsu guy. And I don't think he's going to get his submission early. So I'm fading him, man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a strong take. The only thing that where I might slightly disagree is I kind of thought Trevin Giles didn't look good at 170. You know, the Michael Morales fight gets stopped pretty quickly. And then the next fight against Kosei, look, you did your job. You got your 30-27. But, I mean, when I pull up what those numbers said, which I'm actually about to do right now, man, you know, when you only land 25 strikes in a 3-round fight, I mean, that was abysmal. So basically, I think that Preston Parsons does have a higher work rate than Trevin Giles. My issue is that, you know, I'm not exactly sold on his durability. Not that I am on Giles, but, you know, Parsons, you know, whether it was against D-Rod, whether it was against Mike Perry on the regional scene, you know, he has been stopped every single time he's taken a step up, and he's been stopped in round one every single time as well. So it's just about, you know, it's hard to say that Giles is on a decline. He's still a relatively young guy, man. I mean, I think only 30, 31, you know, so I think it's just a matter of, is he getting used to this weight class now? Because those last two fights, you know, which were his first two at welterweight, were a little bit on the rougher side. Maybe now he's used to it. Maybe third time's the charm. But the reason I'm going to pick Preston, and it's hard for me to do, because look at the resume of Giles. On his regional scene, man, he's the only man to submit Brendan Allen. He beat Ryan Spann. Like, he's beat some real guy, beat Roman Dolidze, despite how stupid that fight was. You know, he's beat some real guys. Just stylistically, I think if Preston doesn't get, you know, badly compromised, I do think he can kind of push the pace on him a little bit and just outwork him. So I'm going to pick him for that reason. But I think you're the one with the money down here. I'm not touching this one unless there's good dog money on that side. So pure pick Preston, no bet for me.
Yeah, I definitely hear you, man.
Now, next up in the flyweight division, this should be very exciting. We got CJ Vergara. He's 10-4-1, taking on Daniel Da Silva Lacerda, who's 11-4. Currently, they got it. CJ Vergara minus 240. The comeback on Daniel Da Silva is plus 205. Let me tell you what, man. Like, this Daniel Da Silva, like the first 60 to 90 seconds when I watch him fight, I'm like, God damn, like this dude is good. Because you look at like a first round or bust guy like Terrence McKinney, and it's more like kind of like Derek Brunson bum rushing you. The technique looks ugly, but he's so athletic that he can get away with it. Whereas like Lacerda, like these techniques in the first 60 to 90 seconds are like really fucking nice. I'm like, this is like a little Charles Oliveira, and then he just falls off a cliff completely. Like I don't get what the deal is, because like a lot of people are talking about how, well, he's lost his three UFC fights and he's been finished in all of them. Why haven't they cut him yet? Well, it's like because the guy takes risks, because the guy's excited, and the guy goes for it. Every single one of his fights are epic as fuck. So I expect no less here. He's live for another first round finish here. The thing is, with CJ Vergara, he's not as athletic as De Silva, may not even be as skilled, but he's that junkyard dog. We've seen him go 3 rounds with another explosive Brazilian in Cleison Rodriguez. And, you know, should he be able to get past this early going, I do think that he kind of pressure cooks him a little bit and gets him out down the stretch. It's just that, you know, both of their jobs are on the line. So this is going to be the best version of De Silva. It's just, even in that last fight against Altamirano, I felt like he was trying to pace himself. It's just, he can't help it for whatever reason. I don't know what the deal is. If someone can explain to me, please do, because like, how can you look like when I'm watching his fights, I'm like, God damn, that was beautiful. Like with Terrence McKinney, I'm never like, that was beautiful. I'm just like, oh damn, he hits hard, right? Whereas with De Silva, I'm like, damn, those like the techniques on his kicks, the arm bars off his back, I'm like, this is some pretty high level shit. Just completely falls apart. So what do you think, man? I mean, is CJ Vergara gonna weather this early storm, take over, slow cook him, or is it finally Daniel De Silva getting his first UFC win and finish here?
Yeah, I wouldn't ask yourself those type of questions, bro. I've just give up on some of these fighters now. I'm still asking myself why Jamie Mullarkey can take a guy down, dominate him in round 1, and then go for no wrestling in round 2 and 3 and almost get his fucking head took off. Like
against Jalen Turner?
No, who did Jamie Mullarkey fight last time? He was a massive favorite.
Oh, against Prada.
But yeah, like they do dumb things, man. Fighters do dumb things. You know, your path of least resistance could be to wrestle, and you'll come out and stand for fucking 3 rounds. Like they do these things, man. And I think it's the same with De Silva. I don't even think he knows why he doesn't pace himself. You know, he's definitely got the technique. He's got some good jiu-jitsu off his back, but he just comes out like a, full retard, spinning back kicks, throwing the kitchen sink. And I can't see it being any different here. I know his back's to the wall, but I don't think he's taking this serious. He's a young lad. I think he's going to come out as usual, come out fast. And it's up to Vergara to, weather that early storm and then put a beating on him. I'm probably going to look for some prop bets, Vergara round 2-3, TKO most likely. But yeah, I guess Silva's live. Vergara has to watch his P's and Q's when he's in guard. I remember De Silva's debut against Jeff Molina. I bet the submission. I liked what I was seeing off his back in the regional tape. And obviously he was holding on to that arm bar for the whole of round 1 and didn't get it. But since then, I've left him alone, man. He's just too stupid for me. So I expect Vergara to knock him out at some point.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, so Vergara, I heard an interview with him. Well, firstly, this fight's in San Antonio, where Vergara's from, so it's a hometown fight for him. He was talking about how, after he beat Cleison Rodriguez, kind of got ahead of himself a little bit, thought he was the man, goes in there against Tyra, misses weight. But he said since that Tyra fight, he's completely changed things around, and it's literally got everything down to a science, from the time he goes to sleep to his morning routine to his strength and conditioning, to his diet, literally everything. He said he's so locked in that was a wake-up call for him, and he knows his back's up against the wall, and he knows his opponent's back is up against the wall too. So I agree with you. Let's get past these first 60 to 90 seconds, and then you take over. It's just those first 60 90 seconds, you're gonna be puckering that ass, man. You're gonna be sweating, man, because this kid's the De Silva. He brings it. It's just it'd be kind of interesting if De Silva maybe lost confidence and tried to pace himself a little bit. Then I'd be more confident in Vergara, because if he fights uncharacteristic, Vergara is just going to go right after him. So, but that's probably not going to happen. De Silva is going to do what De Silva does, look amazing for, a minute and a half, and then fall off a cliff, and Vergara should take over and get a nice hometown decision. So, yes, sir. Now, next up in The lightweight division, we got a matchup between Manuel Loco Torres. He's 13-2, taking on Trey Ogden, who is 16-5. Currently, they got it. Manuel Loco Torres minus 140. The comeback on Trey Ogden is plus 120. And what's interesting is that Manuel opened minus 250. So literally all the actions come in on Trey Ogden. And like the way I think about this is like, look, Trey Ogden is an experienced vet. We got to give him credit for that. The guy's been around the block, yada, yada, yada. And if you're not quite ready for his level, you know, he might be able to expose that. It's just that, like, even in that Zell Huber fight, that was more about Zell Huber pulling a debut stunt than it was about Trey Ogden looking amazing. Like, you look at the numbers in that fight, and there was nothing to write home about. It was just Ogden landed a couple more kicks, you know, landed a takedown, and the kid popped right back up. It's just that when your opponent literally does nothing and you do a little bit, you're going to win. But, I mean, that win actually I think will age well, because I actually do think Zell Huber is going to come back and look even better his next fight. All he has to do is actually fight, which he didn't do against Ogden. But Ogden's also a guy that has a loss over Jordan Levitt, which a lot of people thought he won that fight. He showed a couple things, a nasty guillotine, but that's still a loss that's going to age really badly. And then you go back to his regional fights, and the guy diving in the chokes against Thomas Gifford more than once. So I am not sold on Trey Ogden at all, man. I think that Trey Ogden is just another journeyman where it's kind of like, you know, if you want to pull that debut stunt like Zell Huber, if you're just not quite ready for the UFC level, he can get past you. He's not going to make a statement on you, but he can get past you. But the thing with Manuel Torres, man, is that, like, you watch his regional fights, and I was like, I don't know about this, but his last two fights, like the physicality, he's put on size, he looks great. And it's just like what I see is just improvements, big time improvements, and just big physicality, nasty strikes. And I hear this narrative about, well, he hasn't been past round one. And it's like, okay, sure. But like, what evidence do we have that he's going to slow down should this go past round one? Like, I don't see any evidence of him huffing and puffing or anything like that. Like, it's not his fault that he's getting all these guys out of there in round one. So I'm not going to be the one to hold that against him. So to me, actually, I got Manuel Torres here as my pick. Look, I get it. If at plus 210, you know, you wanted to check if Manuel Torres isn't quite ready, you got a vet in Ogden. Okay. But I think the upside here is with Manuel. I mean, basically what the UFC are trying to do is they try to test out Zell Huber against Ogden. That didn't work out. So now we're going to try out our next prospect against him. They don't have any plans for Trey Ogden. Are you fucking kidding me? So it's just about Manuel not coming out here and pulling some kind of rookie stunt. And if he doesn't do that, I think he's more powerful. I think he's more dangerous. I think he's more physical. I think his trajectory is higher, and I think he's improving fight by fight. So I'm going to go with Manuel Torres for the win.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think narrative-wise, I think the UFC is pulling some things in Mexico. You know, they just opened the PI down there. They've now got Moreno as champ, and they've got Grasso as champ. I bet both of them, partly because of these narratives. And Torres is probably my favorite bet this week. I love the line. Like you said, it's getting down to minus 140 now. I suppose people are, you know, thinking the same thing. Torres hasn't been out of round one. Ogden's going to take him down, you know, maybe sub him. But I don't think so, man. I think this is a setup by the UFC. I think Torres is fully on steroids. I think if you go and check out his Instagram, there's a nice picture on his stories at the minute. I think I've even reposted it on my Twitter, so go check that out and see if you all agree. But yeah, I think Torres is on the supplements 100%. I think he knows he lacks the ground game, and that's why he fights like he does. You know, there's no extending from him in his punches. You know, he's very crisp. You know, he's very wary of the takedown, and I think he's going to be smart here, Torres. Negate the takedowns and probably find another KO, man. I just don't trust Ogden enough. You know, we saw in the Jordan Levitt fight, whether you think he won it or not, you know, he's just putting himself in bad positions, doing stupid things. And, you know, he was gassed in that third round, which is never a good look, obviously. So, yeah, I'm going Torres here, man. My favorite bet of the week.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing about Mexico, if you've ever been, you know, I got family there, like, dude, you can go to a pharmacy and get shit over the counter. It's not like here where, like, you know, you need to set a doctor appointment and, you know, pass all these tests before they approve you. Mexico, just go over there. And I'm not just talking about steroids. I'm talking about any kind of pill you want. Just go over there. It's over the counter. It's like, hey, No big deal. So, you know, as long as his masking agents are on point, honestly, I don't give a fuck, because think about this. Let's say we win this bet and then he tests positive. Guess what? You don't have to give your money back. So it's all good, you know? Uh, But yeah, I'm with you. I got Manuel Torres here as well. Now, this flyweight fight, I'm very excited for. And before we talk about Salvador and Altamirano, everyone do me a huge favor, smash the like button. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, and then also give my buddy Rich a follow at Just Win Baby. So next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Vinicius Salvador, he's 14-4 representing Brazil, taking on Victor Altamirano, who's 11-2 representing Mexico. Currently they got it, it just depends where you look. I mean, I see a -120 for Salvador, a +100 Altamirano. So, and then I see -110 a piece. So it just depends what book you're looking at, but kind of the majority is saying a slight lean, a pick 'em with a slight lean on Vinicius Salvador. And Rich, this is a hell of a flyweight fight, man. I mean, you know for a fact these two, and not only is it Brazil versus Mexico, it's Brazil versus Mexico in Texas. So hopefully the crowd shows up early, because this is going to be a rowdy fight. This is going to be a violent fight. These two are going to go after it. So how do you see this one going down?
Yeah, I love this fight, man. It should have been the curtain jerker, to be honest. You know, they should have fucked these girls off and had this fight opening the prelims, because I think it's going to be fast-paced. I think there's going to be knockdowns, you know, potential fight of the night shit. I really like this kid, Altamirano. I watched his interview from his last fight, and he just comes across as really intelligent to me. You know, I see him on his Instagram playing the cello and stuff and talking about it. But yeah, I think he's got a bit of IQ about him. I like his style in there. I like his knees. I like his volume. And I think he's going to get the win. I don't like what I see from Salvador. I know he's got, you know, power in his hands, and he's exciting, and he got his finish on Dana White's Contender Series. But that was against Shannon Ross, man, who's shown himself not to be the best of competition. And before that, he was fighting 0-0 guys on the regional scene, knocking them out. So I think he's got poor experience. Salvador, I think he's a one-trick pony. He doesn't look for offensive wrestling. He doesn't really throw any kicks. So I don't think he's going to trouble Altamirano that much, to be honest. And I don't think he's going to find his KO, which just leads me to believe that Altamirano is going to find a KO or submission in round 2 or 3, and that's what I'm going to bet.
You know what's funny? I've heard a take this week that Vinicius Salvador has the better gas tank here, and I'm like, are you sure we're talking about the same guy? Because the big concern I have with Salvador is that he literally throws everything into every strike, and he is one of these gassing assassin Brazilian fighters, man. So I think that Altamirano has the way better cardio. It's just that the power and, you know, the more athletic guy, the more physical guy is going to be Vinicius Salvador. But Altamirano kind of reminds me of a fighter that I used to bet on all the time, named Emmanuel Sanchez from Bellator back in the day, where, where, you know, the guy might get taken down early, might get cracked early, but he just keeps pushing and chipping away and going and going and going. And I heard the interview that you're talking about, and I was blown away by how intelligent Altamirano was. I was like, God damn, this guy really thinks, and he knows exactly what he needs to do to win this fight, which is get in Salvador's face and just chip away at him, overwhelm him with volume. But we know the concern here. It's not often you see guys with that one-hitter quitter at flyweight. I mean, we got one guy on this card named Manel Kape. We got a former champion named Davison Dice Dugea Figueiredo. But besides those two, you don't often see that. So it's great to see, you know, a new addition. You know, one of these guys that, you know, he's got that swag. He's got that one-hitter quitter. But, man, I really think Victor Altamirano, should he not be badly compromised, can push the pace on this guy, get him huffing and puffing, and overwhelm him down the stretch. So I'm with you on this one. I like Victor Altamirano as well.
Yeah, and you can say Salvador's got power, but it's hard to gauge, really, isn't it? Like, he KO'd Ross, but it wasn't you know, a one punch and he was out. You know, he survived Ross. You know, he had to knock him down a couple of times before he got him out of there. But you go and look at his regional tape, and it is literally 0-0 guys, man. You know, cab drivers. So how do you really gauge that? Has he got power? Or are they just chinny as fuck and just looking to take one hit, get their money, and go home? But yeah, nevertheless, I'm with you, man. I'll be taking Altamirano. And it's funny. I I likened him at one point to Tony Ferguson, the way he fights. Obviously, minus the technique, is nowhere on Tony Ferguson's level, but he just kind of gave me like Tony Ferguson vibes. You know, the way he was talking as well, a little bit in his interview, like really hyped up and everything. So yeah, I think he could have a big ceiling, man. Obviously, he lacks power in his hands, but you know, the accumulation of the strikes are going to do their thing. So yeah, I really like a finishing round 2 or 3 here, man.
Yeah, it's that death by 1,000 cuts. It's like that fucker. It's like when you step on that cockroach and it's still alive. Like this dude will just keep coming at you.
Yeah.
And I love qualities like that. But when you're talking about the power of Salvador, let's see if Salvador can put an end to that. I personally don't think he does, but that's why it's a pick 'em. So I'm excited to see what happens. But I'm with you on the Mexican here. Now, last but not least, in the bantamweight division, we got Tamiris Vidal. She's 7-1, but between you and me, Rich, she's actually 6-2 because Aileen Perez whooped her ass, and she's taking on Haley Cowan, who is 7-2. And currently, and before I talk about this, it's interesting that they didn't rebook Salvador versus Daniel da Silva, because in that one, I did have Salvador, and they're both on this card. Interesting how that works. But anyways, back to this. Cowan minus 125, Vidal plus 105, open minus 155, Tamiris Vidal. So the line's basically flipped. And like, here's my thing, man. Like, so my first experience watching Tamiris Vidal was when I was scouting Aileen Perez for her UFC debut. And I was thinking, like, this is a low level fight. Like, they're using gym mats in their fights, like, which I respect. Like, at least, like, you know, you're doing what you can with what you have where you are. So props to y'all, but that was a very low level regional scene. So not only was Tamiris Vidal getting a first round flying knee knockout in the UFC fight, not on my bingo card, but Tamiris Vidal getting a UFC win streak is also not on my bingo card. And Haley Cowan, I mean, she's got a lot of work to do also, man. I mean, she does have a nice whizzer kick. She is a little bit athletic, but we've seen a lot of mistakes along the way, whether it was that fight not too long ago where she got clipped and ran right into a guillotine, whether it was back in the day, you know, easily gave up a rear naked choke. Even the Contender Series fight, I thought she was a couple seconds away from pulling that exact same stunt. So, you know, it's hard to take a position. I'll say this. If you got in on that Haley Cowan dog money early, you did your job. Now she's the favorite. But at this price, there's no reason to force a bet. Pure pick Cowan. I have zero interest in betting it, my man.
Yeah, same here. I think I'm going to stay away from this one. I think, like you say, if you got in on the Cowan plus, I think 190, which is just insane. You know, props to you, man. But yeah, it's hard to trust Vidal, and it's hard to trust Cowan. Like, I had loads to say about her when she was due to fight Perez. I was going to take Perez to sub Cowan before Cowan pulled out late notice. She just puts herself in stupid positions. The thing is here with this fight is Vidal getting it to the ground. I don't trust her to do that. And I even think when she's trying to get her body lock on and try and get her outside trip, that Cowan can reverse it. I think she's more athletic. And I think Cowan on top could be a problem, man. So I'm actually leaning towards Cowan to get a finish over Vidal. I think when she's on bottom, Vidal, aside from going for her foot locks and ankle locks, she's pretty poor. And I could see her getting elbowed. I could see her getting cut open, even rear naked choked herself. You know, we see she's got a submission loss on her record. I know it was to Carol Rosa in her early days, so that's a bit of a tough fight. But yeah, I think Cowan's the side here. If you got the plus money, well done. But at minus 125, I'm staying away from this one. I can't bet that, man. One of my rules at the beginning of the year was don't bet women favorites, and I'm not breaking that rule either. So I'm staying off it, man.
So Ghost Gardner, longtime listener of the show, appreciate you, man. He says Victor Altamirano slows down, but the reason he won that Contender Series fight against Candelario is because he started picking it up in the second and third round. He was the one that was, you know, improving as the fight progressed. Whereas you look at the Shannon Ross and Salvador fight, I mean, Salvador was backing into the fence, hands down, breathing hard. It's just, you know, this dude, Shannon Ross, his chin has a magnet for punches, you know, so I actually disagree. I think that Altamirano is the one with the better gas tank there, but we'll find out, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So In your opinion, Rich, what is the fight to watch for UFC San Antonio?
It's got to be the main event, right? You get 5 rounds of it. Vera versus Sandhagen. It's hard to predict what's going to happen. Should be violence, man. 5 rounds of violence. So yeah, that's my fight to watch, I think.
For sure. I mean, listen, you don't have to sell me on Marlon Chito Vera, the man with the most finishes in the history of the bantamweight division, on the cusp of a title shot, taking on a guy in Cory Sandhagen, who, puts up the kind of numbers that we all love to see. And 2 young guys in their prime. That's absolutely the fight to watch for me. Since I have to give another one, I mean, come on, I'm not missing a Nate Landwehr fight. Nate Landwehr for president, you know what I'm saying? And he's got a dance partner in Austin Lingo that's not going to hump his legs, that's not going to make the crowd boo. Austin Lingo is going to swing bombs too. So for that reason, in addition to the main event, Landwehr versus Lingo is my fight to watch. Now, Rich, who is your fighter to watch?
It's a tough one between Marino and Torres, but I think I'll go with Marino. I've got good reads on both of them, or well, I at least think I've got good reads on both of them, and I think they're both going to win. So that's always interesting to me. See if my reads are right. See if the fight goes down like I think it's going to, and if they do, I think both Torres and Marino are going to show out and have a good night.
Yeah, I mean, that's one you have to watch, and for me, my fighter to watch is Manel Kape. Look, I've been saying for a while that this is a guy that could potentially not only fight for a title, but be a champion in the UFC. It's just about making, some better decisions in there, because the skills, the physique, the speed, all that's there. It's just about just being smart in there. I think he's got the perfect opponent who's ranked higher than him to go out there, get a highlight reel finish, and stamp your claim that, hey, I want to be the guy that fights Brandon Moreno or Alexandre Pantoja for that title shot. And to take it a step further, I actually did a show with your co-host Liam at the beginning of the year. We did our 10 boldest UFC predictions, and a few of mine have come true, a few haven't. Obviously, I picked Jamal to win the belt. I said, I forgot which other ones I said. I'll tell you which one I got wrong. I said John Jones was going to take his first UFC L because I thought he was going to fight Francis. I said it before I knew he's fighting Gane. So I'm definitely going to be wrong on that one. But I did say Manel Kape would be fighting for a belt, and I'm not going to back down from that, just like I'm not going to back down from Chito fighting for a belt. So yeah, for that reason, Manel Kape is my fighter to watch. Well, Rich, we did it. It's going down this Saturday, live in San Antonio, Texas at the AT&T Center. Marlon Chito Vera versus Cory Sandhagen. Big thanks to all the fans that tuned in. Do me a huge favor, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. After this is over, leave me a comment. Feel free to share. Also, make sure y'all check out Just Win Baby on Twitter. There's 2 T's on it, and all his links and stuff are all posted there. Highly recommend y'all give him a follow. Very, very low-key guy, but very sharp guy as well. And also, Rich, thanks for taking the time to speak with me right here, right now on Half the Battle.
Yeah, good show, man. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having us on, man.
Absolutely. The pleasure's all mine. For all the fans, thank you all so much for all your endless support. Truly means the world to me. Can't wait for this weekend. Y'all enjoy it. Have a good time. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.